Imagine an ordinary man, surrounded by a generation that mocked him, receiving a call that seemed utterly absurd. To build a gigantic ship on dry land. Sounds crazy, right? But what happened next changed the course of humanity. Noah's Ark wasn't just a vessel. It was a divine project, a refuge amid chaos. Get ready to see the Ark with new eyes. Far beyond wood and pitch, you'll feel the heartbeat of a faith that moves mountains, and an engineering and faith mystery that still defies logical explanation today. You're about to uncover secrets never revealed before. How this colossal structure was designed to survive the greatest judgment in history. How thousands of animals were organized, cared for, and kept alive for months in a confined space. And what this ancient story can teach us about resilience and purpose in today's world. We used burnt oil to waterproof the wood. A simple, almost ancient solution. That's when I understood. The wisdom of the ancients is functional. Even if the Ark was just like that. Every beam, every nail carried more than technique. It carried the hope that this refuge would withstand the apocalypse outside. And that was only the beginning. What if I told you the solution to impossible crises isn't found in big machines or technology, but in principles so simple they can be applied in your own life? If you believe God still works through ordinary people to accomplish extraordinary plans, type now in the comments, I believe in God's plan. The Ark was built to endure, not to race. It's as if God had coated every inch with a primitive but ingeniously effective shield. This wasn't just physical protection. It was symbolic. A handcrafted care that went beyond engineering. A divine rescue capsule, just like the escape pods in sci-fi movies, but made of wood and faith. And honestly, anyone building a capsule like that knows what lies ahead won't be easy. It was like a floating safe box in a sea of chaos, with proportions of 6:1, width and height meticulously designed to ensure total stability. Like a massive salvation container, it had no rudder, no sail, no hurry. It only needed to survive, float, and wait for the right time. Let's unravel this mystery together, one that has crossed centuries and still holds powerful lessons for you. They say a good ship needs to be fast, slicing through the waves with grace. But the Ark, the gopher wood's still a mystery to science today. Combined with pitch, a kind of natural asphalt, formed a double layer of protection against the waters. I remember when I renovated an old shack with my grandfather out in the countryside. We used burnt oil to waterproof the wood, a simple, almost ancient solution. That's when I understood. The wisdom of the ancients is functional, even if rudiment. The Ark was just like that. Every beam, every nail carried more than technique. It carried the hope that this refuge would withstand the apocalypse outside. And that was only the beginning. Imagine being tasked with housing 35,000 animals, not at a zoo, but on a giant wooden vessel during a cataclysmic flood. The genius wasn't just in collecting them, but in organizing them. The Ark's interior was divided into 3 levels, each structured by diet and habitat: carnivores in one tier, herbivores in another, and special environments for reptiles and amphibians. Now multiply that by hundreds in total isolation. The logistics are mind-boggling, but what stands out is not the chaos. It's the order, an order that speaks of purpose. And once we see that order in the chaos, the next question becomes, how do you sustain life day after day when the world outside has drowned? It was less like a barn and more like a floating biosphere. Every placement had purpose. Survival depended on it. Think about it. 35,000 animals plus humans, all producing waste daily. How did they deal with it? A sloped floor with strategically carved channels helped to direct waste to designated zones, flushed out by gravity and rainwater. Primitive, maybe, but efficient. Absolutely. Now, here's where it gets really fascinating. The creation of microclimates inside the Ark. Without electricity, Noah somehow accounted for species that needed humidity, warmth, or coolness. Passive systems, like strategic airflow and water reservoirs, allowed frogs and lizards to remain stable. It's almost like replicating a rainforest in one room and a dry plateau in another, all with basic tools. This wasn't just care, it was divine-level strategy. But managing animals isn't just about climate, it's about behavior. Picture lions sleeping next to deer, or snakes coiled beside birds. What stopped them from turning the Ark into a buffet? That's where the theory of divine hibernation steps in. It's believed God paused the instincts of these creatures, placing them in a restful, energy-saving state, a bit like pressing snooze on the wild. Just like nature knows when to slow down in winter, this was a supernatural stillness. I once volunteered at a wildlife rescue that had over 80 species in one location. Feeding schedules alone took 5 hours daily. Survival on the Ark wasn't just about keeping animals alive. It was about managing a miniature world. Think about it. 35,000 animals, plus humans, all producing waste daily. How did they deal with it? A sloped floor with strategically carved channels helped direct waste to designated zones, flushed out by gravity and rainwater. Maybe, but efficient. Absolutely. Then comes the challenge of food. There were no grocery stores, and obviously no second chances if things spoiled. So, they likely used methods known even in ancient cultures. Sun-drying fruits and vegetables, storing grains in sealed clay pots, and preserving meat through salting. It's the kind of knowledge found in traditional rural communities even today. This created a stack effect, where the warmer air drawn upward pulled fresh air in its place. It's the same principle used in modern eco-homes and even in submarine ventilation systems. But imagine achieving that with only wood and pitch. No fans, no motors, just raw engineering and divine wisdom. When I first visited a clay house in a desert village, I saw the same principle in action. And it worked. Like those who survived droughts with little more than sun, salt, and timing. Water, of course, was life. But you couldn't just drink rainwater straight from the sky. Not with animals around. That's where filtration systems came in. Charcoal, sand, and layered cloth could purify water effectively. With no windows below deck, they relied on oil lamps, small flames that lit up the darkness. These lamps weren't just about vision, they symbolized hope. In the middle of a stormy apocalypse, light matters. Every flicker reminded them they weren't forgotten. And the way the Ark handled light and life inside, well, it says a lot about what was still to come. I remember once, during a 40-day retreat in the semi-arid backlands of Brazil, we used similar filters made from bamboo and gravel. But Noah's Ark wasn't suffocating, it breathed. At the top of the structure was a continuous window called the sohar, a clever feature that allowed for constant air exchange. This wasn't just a gap in the roof. It was a design rooted in physics. Warm air rises escapes through the top, and cooler air flows in from below. Nature's air conditioner, built before HVAC ever existed. What amazed me was that nature, when understood, always provides a way to sustain. And then there was light. Inside a sealed wooden vessel packed with animals, air quality becomes a matter of life or death. To boost this natural circulation, scholars suggest vertical shafts ran through the Ark, acting like chimneys. This created a stack effect, where the warmer air drawn upward pulled fresh air in its place. It's the same principle used in modern eco-homes and even in submarine ventilation systems. But imagine achieving that with only wood and pitch. No fans, no motors, just raw engineering and divine wisdom. When I first visited a clay house in a desert village, I saw the same principle in action, and it worked. Odors must have been intense, right? That's where spatial strategy came in. The Ark was likely divided into sections to isolate animals with stronger smells, and noisy species were placed farther from sleeping quarters. It's a reminder that innovation doesn't always need wires or screens. Sometimes, it just needs understanding, and what happens inside the Ark shows us more than just structure. It reveals how survival begins not with food or water, but with air and the peace to breathe. It is like living in a shared house. You done tea, put the drummer next to the baby's room. Imagine the mental weight, caring for thousands of animals, a confined family, and holding on to faith with no sign of land. Isolation plays tricks on the mind. Time stretches, hope thins, and even routine can feel like a prison. But Noah built structure into the storm. Daily rhythms of prayer, meals, cleaning, and rest weren't just tasks. They were anchors for the soul. Noah wasn't just a builder, he was a logistician, thinking of every detail to maintain sanity inside that wooden world. When noise from animals never stopped and the smell never faded, these rooms offered a mental shelter. Like monasteries carved into mountain caves, they were places to retreat when the world pressed in too tightly. Peace, in such moments, wasn't the absence of sound. It was the ability to endure it with stillness. And when space is shared so tightly, even silence has to be planned. Some say the Ark was primitive, but when you unpack its systems, you realize it had everything necessary to sustain breath, rest, and life. While the outside world drowned in chaos, Noah had to lead with clarity. Inside the Ark, families had separate quarters, not out of luxury, but necessity. It created space for silence, reflection, and perhaps even tears. When noise from animals never stopped and the smell never faded, these rooms offered a mental shelter. Like monasteries carved into mountain caves, they were places to retreat when the world pressed in too tightly. Peace, in such moments, wasn't the absence of sound. It was the ability to endure it with stillness. Noah wasn't just preserving animals, he was protecting peace. And as days passed and hope felt distant, something began to shift in the silence, something that would soon echo in the waters themselves. And yet, the Ark held. Its pitch-sealed hull resisted the crushing pressure, like lungs holding breath under deep water. It was a quiet miracle, repeated every day. The wood didn't splinter. Every night it didn't flood. I've spoken to sailors who faced rogue waves, and even with GPS and steel, they felt helpless. Imagine Noah, no forecast, no radar, just a promise. Noah's strength wasn't superhuman. It came from something deeper. Faith as fuel, not a drizzle, but a roar, a deluge that swallowed mountains, and erased landscapes. The ark, heavy with life, didn't move by choice. It drifted without direction, without control. No sail, just trust. It was like being inside a bottle tossed into a cosmic sea. And yet, not a single wave sank it. The message was clear. Survival didn't come from steering. It came from surrender. While judgment fell outside, faith rose inside. With every whispered prayer, every patient act, that's what kept them sane. I've seen people in disaster zones who'd lost everything but found courage in a morning prayer or a handwritten psalm. That's what the ark became. Not just a rescue vessel, but a floating chapel. Faith didn't just survive the storm. It thrived inside it. And maybe that's the real blueprint here. The world may shake, waters may rise, but if the mind stands firm, the rest can follow. It's hard to imagine the moment the rain began. For 150 days, the waters pressed from every side. And yet, the ark held. Its pitch-sealed hull resisted the crushing pressure, like lungs holding breath under deep water. It was a quiet miracle. Repeated every day, the wood didn't splinter. Every night it didn't flood. I've spoken to sailors who faced rogue waves, and even with GPS and steel, they felt helpless. Imagine Noah. No forecasts, no radar, just a promise. Inside, life somehow went on. Animals breathed, food held out, the air remained clean, and perhaps most miraculous of all, no one gave up. That's not just physical endurance, that's spiritual resilience. A new sound came, not thunder, but wings. Something was changing. Something was coming. It flew back and forth, restless, never landing. Then came the dove, gentle, deliberate. It returned with nothing the first time. But the second, it brought back something small yet mighty, an olive leaf. That simple branch carried a message louder than thunder. The world was healing. Life had found land, and that's where the story begins to rise again. Not from the floodwaters, but from the flight of a bird sent out to search for hope. They were living inside a symbol. The flood outside represented judgment, but the ecosystem inside stood for mercy. Like a beating heart inside a storm, the ark carried the last flicker of creation through the darkness. It became a symbol of discernment, of patience. While the raven circled endlessly, the dove waited for the right moment to return. A rainbow, not just a natural phenomenon, but a divine signature. It was God's covenant, a promise carved in light. Never again. Imagine seeing that after months of gray skies. For Noah's family, it wasn't just a spectacle, it was a sigh of relief from heaven itself. A vibrant yes after a long, thundering no. There's wisdom in that. Not every opportunity is a safe one. Sometimes we move too fast, driven by anxiety, but the dove reminds us, wait, watch, then act. And when it came back no more, Noah knew. The earth was ready to embrace life again, and just when it seemed like the silence would never break. After months adrift with no sign of life, Noah opened the hatch and released a raven, a silent scout into a drowned world. The dove was more than a bird. Then, something breathtaking happened. The sky, once filled with wrath, now stretched wide with color. A rainbow, not just a natural phenomenon, but a divine signature. It was God's covenant, a promise carved in light. Never again. Imagine seeing that after months of gray skies. For Noah's family, it wasn't just a spectacle, it was a sigh of relief from heaven itself. A vibrant yes after a long, thundering no. That rainbow still speaks. To those who've weathered storms, literal or emotional, it says, you're not forgotten. The dove, the branch, the arc of color across the sky. He didn't even explore. His very first act was worship. He built an altar. After surviving the greatest judgment in history, Noah's instinct wasn't survival, it was surrender. But Noah paused. He showed us that beginnings deserve reverence. I remember once, after a long, painful season, I didn't celebrate the breakthrough, I just kept grinding. It wasn't until I stopped to reflect, to give thanks, that I felt the weight lift. The sturdy wood holding everything together. It's a living metaphor, showing that divine guidance, IS&T stuck in the past it is alive and breathing in your daily choices. That's what the altar did for Noah. It made the healing real. Gratitude poured out in the form of sacrifice. It was his way of saying, we're not here by chance. We're here by mercy. They weren't just signs, they were milestones. And as the ark finally touched dry ground, something sacred stirred beneath their feet. A restart for humanity. Cleaner, humbler, slower. The world Noah saw wasn't the same as before, it was quieter. Wounded, but fertile, the sacrifice declared that this fresh beginning would be built on something sacred. Not just survival, but purpose. And that purpose started with honoring the one who carried them through the storm. But Noah's next move wouldn't be to rest. No, he had one more thing to build. The moment Noah stepped onto dry land, he didn't build a house. He didn't scout for food. It had done its job. But what it carried went far beyond animals. It carried faith, perseverance, and a blueprint for starting over. As the smoke rose from that altar, so did a new story. Because in the end, the ark was made of wood, but it was held together by faith. The altar wasn't just about thanks. It was about marking a new era. In today's world, people often rush past their victories, chasing the next goal, the next task. The Ark, once a vessel of rescue, now became a symbol of legacy. We've walked through the incredible engineering, the careful logistics, and the sheer miracle that was Noah's Ark. It wasn't just wood and pitch, it was a blueprint of faith and survival designed to withstand the impossible. If God gave Noah the plans for the Ark, surely he can give you the plans to navigate any storm you face today. Think about this today. You are the Ark protecting your home and your family. Your faith, that's the pitch sealing every crack. Your obedience, this sturdy wood holding everything together. It's a living metaphor, showing that divine guidance, ISNT, stuck in the past, it's alive and breathing in your daily choices. If you believe God still hands down detailed plans to those who seek Him, type in the comments, "I am the Ark of my generation." Let's build a community that stands strong in faith and action. There's so much more to uncover about faith, history, and the mysteries that still shape us today. And don't keep this to yourself. Share this video with someone who needs to remember there is salvation and hope, even in the wildest storms. Before you go, check out the next video. The lost constructions of the Bible, tabernacle and sacred temples, scientific revelations. There's so much more to uncover about faith, history, and the mysteries that still shape us today.